Welcome back to Rebels Revisited. I have so much to say, so I'm not going to waste any time. This is Rise of the Old Masters Revisited. Okay, are you ready? You're not ready? I'm about to reach a higher plane of existence. This episode was so good for Kanan as a character. It's analysis time, baby! Basically, all of Kanan's behavior throughout the episode lends itself to this analysis, but it can really all stem from his do or do not line in the beginning of the episode. He quotes, "Do or do not, there is no try," at Ezra all seriously, but then the second Ezra questions it, he's like, I don't know, but Master Yoda used to say it all the time. And it does a really great job at painting the picture of Kanan's situation here, which is he's faking it. He's totally faking it. When he quotes Yoda, he's just regurgitating things he remembers from another life. Kanan strayed from the Jedi life, and he strayed far, so this isn't exactly coming naturally to him. He knows Jedi teachings, but he knows them like muscle memory. He knows them because he grew up in this religion, like it shaped his formative years. But he doesn't grasp the meaning of these sayings. Kanan is not only unsure of his understanding of Jedi teachings, but he's likely unsure of his connection and relationship to the Force, since he basically cut himself off from it. So Kanan already barely knows what he's doing, and now he's training this kid, and this kid doesn't know what he's doing either, so it's just two people who are lost as far as the Force is concerned. But the problem is, this kid is looking to Kanan for guidance. Guidance that Kanan himself offered, so Kanan can't afford to be lost, and Ezra can't afford for Kanan to be lost. Kanan has a huge amount of responsibility here. This kid's spiritual life is in his hands, and this causes a major internal conflict. The most important thing to understand about Kanan is his deep-rooted insecurity. Kanan has the potential to become perhaps one of the greatest Jedi of all time. The makings of it are already there in the selfless act of him revealing himself as a Jedi and the generous act of him offering to train Ezra. But right now, it's inevitable that he's anxious over everything he doesn't know or has forgotten. As far as training is concerned, he's basically still a Padawan. Caleb Doom never made it past there, and he's way out of practice. It shakes Kanan's focus as a teacher. He's too anxious about everything he doesn't know. He doesn't rely on the Force as much as he should. I think that's why his early teaching style is so rigid and by the book. He doesn't know how else to teach, so he's very concerned with the rules and how Ezra has to know the rules and how Ezra has to follow the rules. And it's a whole mess because Kanan does not thrive with rules. He thrives when he lets himself become a vessel to the Force, however that may happen. He's not meant to be a by-the-book Jedi. He never was. When he was a youngling, he was notorious for asking too many questions. He was curious and creative and thought differently than everyone else. That's why him spitting out rules is him faking it. That's not how his personal connection to Jediism works, but he doesn't get that yet, so he doesn't know what else to do. And that's the key here. Kanan doesn't yet understand his role in the Force. He probably doesn't quite grasp that he has a role in the Force. I believe that when he revealed himself as a Jedi and when he offered to train Ezra, the Force guided him to do those things. We know from the episode Kindred in Season 4 that the Force guided him to Lothal, and it's implied that teaching Ezra is one of the reasons why. There are also other reasons why, but I don't have to acknowledge that for 64 more episodes. When you think about it, both of those actions in Spark of Rebellion either directly or indirectly led Kanan to ultimately fulfilling his purpose. To me, Kanan's arc over the course of the series is about accepting his role in the Force. Entwined with that is an arc about overcoming insecurity, and the two things go hand in hand. I think that makes him a really great addition to Star Wars. The Force is what connects every single piece of Star Wars together. Since Kanan's arc is basically centered on him allowing himself to become a vessel for the Force, he's inherently sewn into the fabric of this universe. And I feel like we watch Kanan's relationship with the Force grow in a more intricate and intimate way than we usually would with other characters. Because I think Kanan's arc is very specifically about the Force. It's such a great arc that spans the series. To see him here in Season 1, where he's so spiritually unsure, and then to think about the ways that he grows to understand and use the Force is just great. And related to the whole insecurity thing, here's an interesting point. Hera had to push Kanan to actually start training Ezra. In Troy's in Distress, Ezra's all, Jedi training? Never heard of it. And Hera's very clearly ticked off that Kanan neglected to start the training. Later, we catch the end of a conversation between her and Kanan, where Kanan's like, I don't want to talk about this, and Hera's like, that's fine, but we do have to talk about it. And we infer based on the earlier context that they were talking about the training. So it all happened off screen, but Hera actually had to confront Kanan about how his insecurity was stopping him from doing this. Anyway, back to this episode. I find this one scene very interesting. Kanan grows angry with Ezra for being unfocused during their lesson. He heatedly says to Ezra, "You're undisciplined and full of self-doubt." Sound familiar? Yeah, it's accurate to Ezra, but Kanan's describing himself here. Now, okay, I was an AP Lit kid and not an AP Psych kid, so forgive me for any misunderstandings here, but let's have a little conversation about externalization. From what I've gathered, externalization is basically like a coping mechanism where someone projects their faults or failures onto other people, usually leaving himself blameless. I think Kanan is too self-aware to think himself blameless, but he definitely displaces the weight of his crippling insecurity by directing it elsewhere, and it's really obvious here. He externalizes his shortcomings as a teacher and projects them onto Ezra as a student. He's concerned about Ezra being unfocused instead of vocalizing the real problem, which is how his insecurity has made him unfocused as a teacher. We see a similar behavior in Steps into Shadow when watching the Bendu help Kanan work through his blindness, but we're not there yet. I know, I'm jumping all over the place in this installment, but I'm making connections, okay? Kanan is noticeably very hard on Ezra in this episode, and even borders on feeling unreasonable, or at least he seems unreasonably irritated with Ezra. It's not the Kanan we're used to seeing. See, Kanan is hard on Ezra because 1, he's compensating for his insecurity, and 2, he is worried about Ezra's safety. These things go hand in hand because Kanan doesn't trust himself to teach Ezra well enough to keep him safe and for Ezra to safely learn the ways of the Jedi. Everything, literally everything, comes back to Kanan's insecurity. Okay, that was a lot. How am I doing on time? Oh my god, I did the rest of this so fast. Okay. Okay, it's kind of messed up that they used Luminara's remains to lure Jedi to their deaths. The Inquisitor says her bones continue to serve the Empire. That's terrifying. Speaking of the Inquisitor, this is such an episode for him. Y'all, the Inquisitor is terrifying. He knows exactly how to trip someone up psychologically. His dialogue is spine-chilling, and Jason Isaacs does a bang-up job voicing him. Also, Last Airbender fans, I did not know until making this that Jason Isaacs also voiced Zhao in Last Airbender, right? So there we go, 2 villains that are somehow linked to Dave Filoni, I guess? Anyway, guys, the way the Inquisitor exploits Kanan's insecurity, he fights him for 2 seconds and reads him instantly. He's like, you trained with Master Balaba, and most importantly, insults his reliance on Form 3. Kanan is surely anxious about being in a lightsaber duel. Like, he hasn't done this in a long time, and his training's incomplete. Again, he's clinging to the things he remembers, and in this case, what he remembers is Form 3. The Inquisitor knows exactly which buttons to push to get to him. He also says about Ezra, have you taught him nothing? So now he's criticizing Kanan's ability to teach, which he's also not confident in at all, literally pushing all the right buttons. The cool and also terrifying thing about the Inquisitor is that even though he's an excellent swordsman, he's more concerned with getting into a person's head. You break a man's mind, it's so much easier to break his body. He knows the mind is the most powerful part of a person, and that's what he always goes for. Alright guys, home stretch, let's talk about Kanan and Ezra. Love the part where Kanan and Ezra open the gate together. It's a nice climax to this episode. Both are so doubtful of themselves that they think the other person deserves someone better, and that scene is a beautiful way for them to see that they were meant to work together. When Kanan says, I guess he's stuck with me. But then when Ezra later says, I don't want the best teacher, I want you! Moments like that! That's why I love this show. What a beautiful freaking scene. What a beautiful moment for the 2 of them. Kanan does this thing sometimes where he's so acutely aware of what's wrong with him that he fails to see the bigger picture. He gets too focused on himself sometimes. It's not an arrogant kind of self-centeredness, but it's still self-centeredness. He's so hung up on all the reasons why he's unqualified to be a teacher that it doesn't even cross his mind Ezra might want him as a teacher. And the whole moment is quite lovely. They're so open about the things they feel. They were in quite the tangled mess of self-doubt where each one doubted himself so hard that he was sure the other one wanted to get rid of him, but neither realized that the other was only concerned with his own shortcomings. It's great they have a relationship where they can communicate and sort that out and realize that not only are they a good match, but they might be a perfect match. Kanan showing his understanding of the do or do not quote is a great way to wrap up this episode. He couldn't understand it before because he was trying to avoid actually confronting his shortcomings while also letting them completely paralyze him. He was stuck in a rut of subconsciously saying to himself, I can't do this. His experience with the Inquisitor and the proof that he and Ezra will make a great partnership showed him that not only does he have to get over his insecurity, but also that there's reason to believe that it's possible. That was a lot. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always.